Hello, welcome to My Secret Obsession. I'm Cherish Lively, and today I'm reading the first two chapters of My Best Friend's Secret by Karen Thompson. So, get cozy, turn up the volume, and let's read a book. My Best Friend's Secret by Karen Thompson. The moment Hudson Foster saw Emma Tilford, he was in love, and only 10 years old. New to the neighborhood, Hudson was smitten when Emma knocked on their front door. His stomach fluttered with butterflies once he heard they were moving to a new state, and he had to start a new school. But when he saw Emma, everything changed. She bounced toward him, her light brown curly hair bobbing with each step, and her smile radiated across her freckled face, putting Hudson at ease. "Hello, Hudson. I'm Emma. You and I are going to be best friends," she said with sweet confidence. Hudson didn't doubt it, and couldn't imagine wanting anything more. The move and leaving his friends behind in Perth had caused him anxiety. Young Hudson preferred his ducks to swim in a straight row. He enjoyed structure in his life and learned this from his dad. His dad's engineering work fascinated him, and watching him build and create buildings, he knew he wanted to follow in his footsteps when he was older. He cherished every moment spent with his father, savoring their conversations and shared experience. He was his hero. His dad, Max, had inherited his mother's house, and with the choice to live mortgage-free, selling their house in Perth and moving across Australia to Newport, Sydney, seemed a perfect idea for the family. Max's mother, Janet Foster, had passed away 3 months ago at the ripe old age of 49. Her neighbors noticed they hadn't seen Janet tending to her garden for a few days and decided to check in on her. After receiving no response from knocking on the front door, they called the police, who discovered Janet in bed with a book on her chest. She had been dead for 2 days. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Janet Foster from 14 Charming Street, with her immaculate garden and cheerful demeanor. Her green thumbs had transformed her garden into an oasis that captivated everyone who walked down the street. Janet had lived in the house all her married life, and gardening had become her passion. As the years passed, she needed a gardener to help with mowing and weeding. Little Emma lived down the road from Janet, and through their love of flowers, Janet soon became an extra granny. Emma adored her Granny Janet and visited her every day. She still remembered the day they first met. Emma had always admired Janet's garden when she walked past the house. One day, wanting to pick some flowers for her mom, who hadn't been feeling well, Emma skipped into Janet's garden and helped herself to colorful lilies. She was tugging at the flowers when she noticed an elderly lady approaching her with a walking stick. Emma froze in place. "Young lady, what do you think you're doing?" Janet called out in a stern voice. Emma stood still, her wide eyes darting around the garden as she gripped the hem of her bright pink dress. Her lips trembled at the question as her heart pounded. She took a small, shaky breath before glancing at the elderly lady, whose wrinkled face wore a look of concern as she waved her walking stick. A pale pink shawl, knitted from the softest yarns, was draped over her shoulders, and her silver hair, smooth and shining, was gathered in a tidy bun. Emma stammered, her voice above a whisper. She fidgeted with her fingers, twisting them together while she struggled to find the right words. Her cheeks flushed a rosy pink, and she lowered her gaze to the ground, hoping the answer somehow would present itself. After a moment of hesitation, she mustered a small, timid smile, trying to hide her fear while conveying a hint of confidence. Yet, the uncertainty lingered in her voice, betraying her anxiety. "My mummy wasn't feeling well, and I thought your flowers would make her happy." She kept her eyes on the ground, waiting for reassurance, her small frame reflecting the strain of her apprehension. Janet smiled and placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "That's right, dear. Flowers always make me feel better." "My mom loves flowers. My dad used to buy them for her, but then he stopped. I want to make her feel better." Janet extended her hand. "What's your name?" "Emma." "Come inside, Emma. Let's cut the flowers and arrange them in a bouquet for her." Emma smiled and took Janet's hand, following her. I'll pop into the kitchen and sort the flowers out. You can wait in the sitting room for me. Emma followed the instructions, walked into the sitting room, stopped and gasped. Janet laughed. Yes, my dear, I had the same reaction when I first saw them, too. They're beautiful. Do you want to hold one? Could I? Promise not to break it. Of course. Janet turned the brass key in the glass display cabinet and removed a vintage, rose-print, fine-bone china teacup with a floral design. She placed it in Emma's hands. My late husband bought this for me for our first anniversary. It's very special. Emma gripped the cup with her eyes wide open. It's beautiful. I'll get my husband to buy me a set when I'm older. Janet laughed. I'll tell you what. Why don't you come back tomorrow after school, and we can have a nice cup of tea and use this tea set? That would be wonderful. Emma gave Janet a warm smile. We can whip up some cream and bake scones and imagine ourselves living like royalty. Emma wasn't sure what royalty meant, but she found the idea appealing. Janet returned the cup to the cabinet, took the flowers to the kitchen, and arranged them for Emma to take home, tightening them in a lovely yellow bow. Here you are, dear. This should make your mom smile. Emma smiled. Oh, yes, and yellow is her favorite color. Thank you. Emma reached over and placed a soft kiss on her wrinkled cheek. Janet smiled. Oh, dear, it's been a while since someone gave me a peck on my cheek. Thank you, Emma. Janet watched Emma skip down the pathway. A profound ache settled deep within her heart. The little girl's laughter reminded her of her twin grandchildren. Her son Max, a successful engineer thriving in Perth, always spoke of plans to visit, promising to bridge the miles between them. Yet, with each passing Christmas, the emptiness grew heavier with each cancellation that rolled in. Something more pressing always seemed to demand his attention. For Janet, Emma was a radiant beacon in her gloom, filled with the life and energy that reminded her of the twins. The joy of Emma's company laced itself with a quiet sadness, and Janet longed to hold her grandchildren in her arms and hear their laughter again. When Hugo, her husband, was alive, trips to Perth had held a special place in their hearts, filled with laughter and the warmth of family. Those joyful reunions were effortless, weaving a vibrant tapestry of love through each visit. These days, the idea of boarding a plane alone loomed over her like a daunting mountain, intensified by every ache and creak of her bones. Max kept promising he would come to visit, yet those promises hung in the air like unfulfilled dreams, growing more distant with each passing day. A yearning settled in her heart, serving as a bitter-sweet reminder of what she had lost. The joy of Emma's company carried a profound sadness that wrapped around Janet's heart in a cold shadow. She yearned to cradle her grandchildren, to have their bodies against her, and to hear their laughter that once filled the air with warmth. Each moment Janet spent with Emma was bittersweet, and she longed for the joyful chaos of her family, which seemed out of reach. Over the years, Emma and Janet shared many cups of tea and homemade scones. Janet always brought out her china tea set and treated Emma like a queen. Emma gripped the cup with both hands. She didn't want to drop it, so she sat up straight and kept her feet firmly on the floor. Janet enjoyed teaching her about her plants and making the perfect cup of tea. They became dear friends, and Emma cherished how Janet showered her with love and kindness. Emma soon learned what royalty was, and she loved it. Granny Janet had a dazzling collection of rings that never failed to delight Emma. She wore them on special occasions, pretending to be a queen or princess. Her favorite was Janet's wedding ring, a breathtaking piece featuring a glittering pink diamond set within a halo of delicate white diamonds. The most enchanting piece Emma had ever seen. Hugo, my darling husband, surprised me with this ring when he proposed. Granite Janny reminisced with a twinkle in her eyes. It was love at first sight. I adored it and have cherished it ever since, never wanting to part with such a beautiful symbol of our love. I hope my husband will give me something beautiful like this when I get married. Janet patted her hand. I'm sure he will, dear. Granny Janet taught Emma about her life, which was filled with love, joy, and fun. Her stories kept Emma coming back for more, that and the scones. She never grew tired of hearing how she met Hugo, the man of her dreams. Emma cried for days when she heard Granny Janet had died. She wasn't alone. The entire neighborhood came to her funeral. Janet would be missed, and Charming Street wouldn't be the same without her. Janet left Emma her favorite rose tea set and a little gold ring with a diamond. This only made Emma cry more. Emma's mother, Susan, put the items away until Emma was old enough to use them. Her father, Bill, considered it a waste to keep it for all those years and wondered how much it was worth and if it could cover the money he had lost gambling. We should sell them since Emma won't be able to use them for years and put the money towards the mortgage, Bill said. He needed the money since his gambling habit had caused him to remortgage the house, and he was behind on the payments. Susan looked at her husband in shock. This is not ours to sell. Emma can use them later. She can enjoy them, and they will remind her of Janet and the precious moments they treasured. She wouldn't know. I would, and I couldn't live with myself if we did that. Susan scowled at him with her piercing hazel green eyes. Fine. I'm concerned about the family, that's all, Bill lied, hoping to make Susan feel guilty, and she would change her mind. Yet her face told him he was in deep water. Susan walked away, shaking her head. These days, she didn't know who her husband was. She loved Bill, but lately, he wasn't acting like the husband she had been married to for 15 years. Something was off about his behavior. He fidgeted, his eyes darting around the room, revealing his nervousness. Bill was an accomplished accountant and earned a good salary that supported the family. They had a lovely 4-bedroom house in a pleasant neighborhood and a nest egg in their savings account, allowing them to live comfortably. Susan stayed home with Emma, making memorable moments of their time together. She cherished baking and being home when Emma came home from school. Their bond was strong, and Susan loved taking care of her family, ensuring they had everything they needed. Since no "for sale" sign went up, the neighbors wondered what would happen to Janet's house. They watched her grass grow and weeds overtake the beautiful once-manicured flower beds. The house remained empty for months, and no one stopped to admire it anymore. It saddened Emma. She was sure Granny Janet would have been unhappy to see what had become of her garden. Don't worry. Someone will move in soon and bring it back to life, Susan reassured her. Emma didn't want anyone, only Granny Janet. Chapter 2. They didn't have to wait much longer, as the Fosters moved in the following Saturday. Several eyes watched them behind their curtains when the removal van arrived and parked in Janet's driveway. Oh, look, dear. Susan turned to her husband, who was reading the morning paper, scowling when he glanced over the stock shares. Someone is moving into Janet's house. Bill stood. His heavy 6-foot frame moved behind his petite wife, and he peered out the window. It looks like a young family with kids. It would be nice for Emma to have someone to play with. Bill and Susan had been disappointed that Emma was their only child. They had tried to have another, yet their efforts were in vain. Bill especially wanted a son. They ran out of funds and options and decided Emma would remain an only child. Despite their efforts to shower Emma with love, they couldn't shake the feeling that she was lonely after Janet's departure, leaving her sad and lonely. Look, they have children, Susan said. Oh, we have to go around and introduce ourselves. Bill, now Emma will have new friends to play with. Love, let them settle in first. Bill understood his wife felt guilty for not giving Emma a brother or a sister. He tried to convince her that being an only child had advantages too. Susan was a timid soul who took every shortfall personally and couldn't see past her failure. She loved kids, and it had been her dream to be married and have a house full of children. Her disappointment had been hard for Bill to swallow, and he knew he had let her down. Come away from the window. We don't want them to think we are nosy neighbors, he said sternly. Susan did what she was told. Bill was right. He was always right. She made herself comfortable at their kitchen table and drank her cold tea. She looked at Bill with love. He was a good man, and she loved him, yet the guilt consumed her. She had failed him. He had said nothing. Still, she sensed it. Women know these things. She had scarred his manhood. If Emma were a boy, things would have been different. Bill became a recluse at times and disappeared within himself. Susan pondered if these were the times he was remorseful and blamed her. She did everything to be the perfect wife, and Bill lacked for nothing, almost nothing, except the son he wanted. Bill worked hard for the family at his office in Sydney. Following in his late father's footsteps, he found great joy and passion in his job as a portfolio manager. He found it satisfying that he was able to provide for his family, allowing Susan to stay home with Emma as a full-time mom. Susan used to help Janet with the house cleaning and cooking, and they had become close. Now that had stopped. The extra cash had been handy. Susan missed her conversations with Janet. She saw Janet as the mother figure she had never had. With Janet's son living far away and not visiting her, Janet embraced Susan and Emma as her adopted family. Bill allowed her to keep Janet's cash, which she used for small, enjoyable things. Yet lately, Bill had been taking money from her purse, which was annoying. With Janet gone, she was looking for something else to make extra pocket money. Emma bounced into the room, wearing her pink butterfly dress and white sandals. Her brown, curly hair bounced with each step she took. "Emma, walk properly. You aren't on a stage," Bill barked at her. Susan loved the way Emma bounced. She was an easy child, never giving them a day's trouble. "Here, love, sit down. I'll get you your breakfast." "Susan, she's 10 years old. She can get her own breakfast." Bill barked again. Susan gave Bill one of her disapproving looks. "My, you are grumpy this morning. What's eating at you?" "Nothing." This wasn't true. He had seen in the paper that his shares had plummeted, and he had lost a significant amount of much-needed cash. He started gambling when his colleagues suggested investing in shares. They told him it was easy money from a new, promising company that was going places, and that he would be one of its first investors, making millions. He didn't want to say no, and he loved the thrill of gambling, hoping to win big one day. That day still hadn't come. He had spent their savings and had to re-mortgage the house. Bill kept a tight rein on the accounts, hoping Susan couldn't see what was happening behind her back. She believed they were sitting pretty. He hoped he would find the cash and make up for the losses. This new deal seemed like a sure plan, and his colleagues assured him it was a winner. He took the last of their savings and bought the shares, convincing himself that everyone was on board, so it must be a sound investment. They had dropped the previous night, and Bill had to sell them fast. Still, who wanted his shares now that they were not performing? Running his hand over his thinning salt and pepper hair at 45, he was going gray. Bill understood he had to give up gambling, yet it was easier said than done. He wanted to make the money back first, and a quick way was the best way. If he ever won, he would place a bet again and lose it. He continued to hope that his next windfall was just around the corner. Bill never planned to become a gambler. He would start winning whenever he planned to stop, and Susan needed money for her IVF treatments. Things got out of hand, and the money was gone before Bill saw what had happened. Then guilt became his constant companion. His failure to provide for his family, his inability to give Susan another child, and his putting them in debt were continual struggles. He had let everyone down, and he didn't want Susan to find out that they were broke, flat broke. He tried to stop her from spending money they didn't have. An overwhelming sense of guilt drained him as he kept his secret from his family. The pressure of his hidden truth consumed him, causing him to wrestle with shame, remorse, and self-blame. He struggled, knowing that his deception caused pain and potential harm to his loved ones, and the burden of guilt weighed on his conscience, impacting his emotional well-being and relationship with his wife. He gulped down the last sip of coffee and stood. "I'm off to the office. I'll see you both tonight." "Have a great day. Here's your lunch," Susan said, kissing him on the cheek. Bill ran his hand over Emma's curly hair. Bye, Emma. Be good today. Bye, Dad. She would never understand why her dad always told her to be good when she was never naughty. Bill frowned, took his lunch, and headed to his car. It was going to be a tough day. The pressure was on, and his head was on the chopping block. People are moving into Janet's house today. I see they have children, Susan said to Emma. Emma couldn't imagine having brothers or sisters. She wouldn't share her toys with them. I hope they fix her garden. I'm sure they will look after the place like Janet did. Later in the week, let's say hello and take them some chocolate chip cookies. Emma nodded, unsure if she was ready to see Janet's house again without her in it. The weeks passed, and the neighbors breathed a sigh of relief when they noticed Janet's garden returning to life. Colorful blooms peeked through the overgrown weeds, showing someone had taken care of the neglected space. They smiled at the sight of new footsteps on the pathway, with a sense of comfort, knowing that life had returned to the old house after Janet's passing. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Your time and attention are truly appreciated. If audiobooks are your thing, you can listen to full novels on My Secret Obsession at Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, and Apple. If you enjoyed this reading, please follow, subscribe, or give a thumbs up. Your support means everything to me. Until we meet again, goodbye and happy reading.